The night was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence that felt intentional, like the world itself was holding its breath. Smoke rose from shattered ridgelines, drifting to the cold mountain air as faint embers crackled beneath collapsed steel. In that broken landscape, where the earth had been carved open by alien bombardment, a lone figure lay prone on a jagged outcropping. Staff Sergeant Cole Hunter adjusted his rifle with deliberate, steady movements, as though the entire battlefield were simply a problem he intended to solve. Yet even as his eyes tracked the distant horizon, a tension coiled inside him, an unspoken conflict that no weapon could fully silence. Cole had earned a reputation among his unit for impossible shots, but he rejected the praise with a cold, distant humility. His squad believed his calm came from discipline. The truth was far heavier. Months earlier, when the first wave of the Galactic Dominion landed, he had been home on leave. Plasma storms tore through his city, and all he remembered afterward were flames, the screaming, and the weight of his daughter's small hand going limp in his arms. Ever since that day, he had carried a quiet storm inside him. Grief sharpened into resolve, pain transformed into purpose. He didn't speak about it, but every soldier around him felt the invisible gravity he carried. Below the ridge, the valley lay littered with burnt-out vehicles and half-toppled communication towers. The Dominion had marched through without resistance, their armor deflecting everything humanity had thrown at them: bullets, rockets, even experimental high-temperature beams. Rumors spread across military channels that their exoplates were not merely engineered materials, but a form of living alloy, capable of hardening with each impact. Whether the science was true or exaggerated didn't matter. What mattered was that entire battalions had fired upon them, and not a single alien had fallen. Tonight, the Dominion returned, their silhouettes shimmering beneath the moonlight. Their deep, guttural laughter carried across the valley, mocking, confident, cruel. It was a sound humanity had come to associate with defeat. Cole's squad shifted uneasily behind the rocky barricade. Private Harlow swallowed hard, gripping his rifle so tightly his knuckles whitened. Sergeant Yun whispered tactical updates into the radio, her voice trembling with frustration more than fear. They had been holding this outpost for days, waiting for reinforcements that never arrived, watching the Dominion advance inch by unstoppable inch. Cole listened to the alien laughter with a stillness that unsettled his squad. Something changed in his eyes, a hardening, but also a spark of focus. He had spent weeks studying their armor patterns, analyzing every engagement, every recorded scan. He had noticed something others dismissed, a faint flicker across the chest plate whenever the aliens prepared their plasma cannons. A weakness, perhaps, or wishful thinking. But it was the only lead they had, and Cole's mind clung to it like a lifeline. A soft crackle echoed through his comm device. Command's voice came through, strained and breathless. The alien commander approaching the ridge was classified as an unbreakable titan, a towering figure believed to be centuries old and undefeated across multiple star systems. Its presence alone had turned the tide of battles. If it reached the mountain pass, every human base beyond would fall. Cole quietly acknowledged the transmission, though he hardly needed a reminder. He had seen the Titan before, during the destruction of his city. The memory of its massive form rising through the smoke was carved permanently into his mind. As the soldiers below scrambled for defensive positions, Cole extended the bipod of his rifle and steadied his breathing. His motions were practiced and smooth, yet something in them felt heavier tonight, more deliberate, more personal. The Titan emerged through the thinning smoke, towering over the smaller soldiers with grotesque majesty. Its armor pulsed with an eerie glow, absorbing ambient light and radiating a cold, unnatural aura. When it spoke, its voice thundered across the valley, mocking the humans with deep, resonating amusement. It called snipers cowards, claimed their bullets were nothing more than metallic dust, and promised that Earth would be purified until no resistance remained. Harlow cursed under his breath. Yin tightened her grip on her rifle. Cole remained silent, but inside him a fault line shifted. He had trained his entire career for precision, for calm, for controlling variables. But now, as he stared at the Titan, his calm merged with something deeper, an old promise whispered in the ruins of his home. He would not allow another city, another family, another child to be taken. He loaded a single custom round, its casing scratched but stable. It wasn't a miracle shot, and he wasn't expecting certainty. He only needed possibility. As the Titan stepped forward, its chest plate brightened just slightly. That was enough. Cole exhaled slowly, steadying the crosshairs. The world narrowed to a single breath, a single heartbeat, a single chance. The alien laughter grew louder, as though mocking his attempt before he even pulled the trigger. He whispered to himself, not a prayer, not a vow, but a quiet echo of the promise he made long ago, not again. And with that, he squeezed the trigger. The moment the rifle discharged, a sharp concussion rolled across the ridge, briefly overpowering even the alien laughter. The bullet spiraled through drifting ash and fractured moonlight, carving a narrow path toward the Titan's chest. For a single fragile instant, hope ignited inside Cole's squad as they watched the round strike exactly where he had aimed. But when the impact produced only a shallow crack in the alien's armor, barely a scratch, every ounce of that hope collapsed beneath the weight of reality. The Titan stumbled, not from pain but from amusement, tilting its head as though surprised a human had dared attempt such a shot. Then it laughed again, louder, crueler, its voice vibrating across the mountainside with contemptuous delight. The Dominion soldiers roared in response, emboldened by their leader's invulnerability. They began advancing up the rocky slope, each step shaking loose stones that tumbled down toward the humans' defensive positions. Plasma bolts exploded against the barricades, scorching the air with incandescent blue fire. Harlow ducked behind a boulder, his breathing erratic as he shouted over the comms, begging for retreat. Sergeant Yun cursed as she returned fire, knowing full well that her bullets would do little besides slow the aliens' approach. Fear spread to the squad like a contagion, tightening throats and quickening pulses, transforming disciplined soldiers into cornered survivors. Cole did not collapse under the disappointment. Instead, a cold realization tightened around him. He had been right about the flaw. His shot had struck the exact location he predicted, but the armor had only weakened, not broken. The opportunity existed, but it demanded far more precision and timing than he had anticipated. The alien's chest plate glowed brighter now, a sign that internal systems were absorbing energy, preparing a devastating blast capable of erasing the entire outpost. If Cole did nothing, his squad would be wiped out within minutes. Still, the knowledge that the armor could crack, even slightly, anchored him against despair. Before he could recalibrate his weapon, a barrage of plasma detonated across the ledge, tearing apart the section where a spotter had been positioned moments earlier. The explosion threw Cole backward, slamming him against the ground and filling his mouth with dust and a metallic bite of blood. His ears rang violently as the world blurred, but through the haze, he registered chaos. Yin was dragging the wounded behind cover. Harlow was firing blindly, barely keeping his weapon steady. The ridge that once felt defensible was now exposed, vulnerable, and shrinking under the relentless alien assault. Cole pushed himself upright, blinking away the disorientation. His rifle lay half buried beneath shattered rock, its scope cracked but still attached. As he retrieved it, a wave of doubt crashed through him, raw, suffocating, and unfamiliar. For years, he had relied on precision and clarity. Now, both seemed to be slipping through his grasp. His hands trembled, not from fear or death, but from the crushing possibility of failure. The memory of his daughter's hand in his own flickered again, its warmth fading into the cold reality of the battlefield. He forced his breath into rhythm, grounding himself despite the chaos. The Titan was moving closer now, its massive steps slow and deliberate, as if savoring the collapse of human resistance. Its soldiers flanked it, firing directed bursts that pinned the squad in place. Cole lowered himself behind a jagged rock and wiped the dust from his scope. Despite the damage, the crosshairs came into focus, revealing the glowing plates on the Titan's chest. They pulsed brighter each time prepared to unleash a blast. Cole studied the rhythm. It wasn't random. The energy surge peaked for only a fraction of a second, a tiny window when the armor softened just slightly. That was the moment he had to hit. Anything earlier or later would be useless. He needed to reposition. From where he lay, the angle was wrong, but moving meant exposing himself fully to enemy fire. Yin shouted at him to stay down, insisting they could fall back and regroup, But Cole knew better. There would be no second chance. If the Titan reached the upper ridge, the remaining bases would be overrun in hours. Humanity couldn't retreat again. Not this time. Not after losing so much already. Cole crawled along the crumbling edge of the outpost, dragging his rifle with him as plasma bolts streaked past his arms and shoulders. Heat singed his uniform, and the stone beneath him vibrated from continuous impacts, threatening to give way entirely. Every move demanded precision. One mistake meant tumbling into the valley below, or being vaporized where he lay. Yet despite the danger, Cole felt a strange clarity settle into him. Pain sharpening purpose, fear forging focus. He was no longer shooting for vengeance or survival. He was shooting because if he didn't, no one else could. At last, he reached a narrow ledge overlooking the battlefield with an unobstructed view of the Titan. He steadied his rifle against the broken metal beam and exhaled slowly. His squad shouts faded. The alien laughter dimmed. The world reduced itself to a single rhythm, the pulsing glow of the Titan's chest plate. Cole waited, counting the intervals between each surge. A distant part of him understood the impossibility of what he intended, but impossibility had never stopped him before. The Titan raised its arm, energy surging. The peak was approaching. The moment he needed was seconds away. Cole's fingers settled against the trigger. He whispered, "This time you fall." The Titan's chest plate brightened with a violent surge of energy, casting harsh white light across the shattered mountainside. The glow flickered, just once, revealing the microscopic fracture Cole had been waiting for. The world around him dissolved into muted echoes, his senses narrowing to a single calculation of distance, timing, and trust in his own resolve. As the Titan raised its arm to unleash a blast capable of erasing his entire squad, Cole inhaled steadily, aligning the crosshairs with unshakable precision. In that narrow sliver of time, he felt no fear, no hesitation. Only the quiet certainty that if he missed, humanity's last line of defense would be reduced to ash. When the energy surge peaked, he squeezed the trigger, sending the final custom round through the drifting haze. The bullet cut through the air with unwavering purpose, spiraling toward the glowing fracture like it had been destined for that point alone. The Titan's armor shifted subtly as it prepared to release its devastating attack, the glow reaching its brightest intensity. Then, in a moment so brief it almost felt imagined, the round pierced the weakened seam. A sharp, crystalline crack rang out across the ridge, followed by a deep rupture that echoed like distant thunder. The Titan staggered, its laughter abruptly extinguished, its energy beam collapsing into itself in a burst of flickering sparks. For the first time since the Dominion's invasion, one of their so-called invincible warriors faltered, struck down by a single human bullet. The alien soldiers froze in shock, their confidence crumbling into disbelief. Their formation shattered as the Titan dropped to one knee, clutching its chest where smoke now seeped through shattered armor. Beneath its plated exoshell, a dark energy pulsed erratically, struggling to maintain coherence. Cole remained motionless, breath held, refusing to blink until he saw the Titan fall completely. It rose once more, desperate to cling to a delusion of superiority. But its strength was waning. The internal energy core flickered, destabilizing further with every passing second. Finally, the Titan collapsed face first into the ash-covered earth, sending tremors across the ridge as its massive body hit the ground. Silence followed, stunned, heavy, and unforgettable. Then chaos erupted. The alien troops panicked, scattering across the valley as their command structure crumbled. Some fled in disarray. Others fired frantically at nothing, their discipline shattered by the sight of their undefeatable leader lying defeated. Cole's squad watched in awe, the shock in their faces slowly transforming into something they had not felt in months. Hope. Harlow stood up first, disbelief etched across his features as he shouted that the Titan was down. Yin dropped to her knees, breath trembling, overwhelmed by the realization that humanity had finally struck a blow that mattered. Cole lowered his rifle, exhaustion flooding through him with dizzying force. His muscles trembled from exertion and the weight of the moment, but he forced himself upright, knowing the battle, though turning in their favor, was not yet over. His squad gathered around him, voices filled with gratitude and astonishment. For the first time since he joined their unit, They looked at him not as a distant expert, but as a man who had changed the impossible. Their admiration washed over him, warming a part of him he'd thought long frozen. Yet beneath the victory, grief lingered quietly, a reminder of what had driven him here. The remaining Dominion troops retreated into the valley, abandoning their positions in desperate haste. Allied forces monitoring the ridge reported the unexpected advance across multiple channels, spreading news of the Titan's fall throughout the scattered pockets of resistance. Messages poured in, crackling with emotion, from bases that had believed themselves moments from collapse. They called Cole's shot a miracle, a turning point, the spark that could ignite humanity's resurgence. But Cole refused to accept the word miracle. He knew it had been calculation, timing, and the relentless fire of someone who had already lost everything except the will to fight. Reinforcements arrived hours later, fortifying the ridge and pushing deeper into the valley while Dominion forces scrambled to regroup. Medical crews treated the wounded, engineers reconstructed damaged positions, and officers echoed the same phrase across every transmission: the unbreakable has been broken. Cole moved through the aftermath silently, offering help where he could, though his mind was elsewhere. When the ridge was secure and the moment of urgency had passed, he walked alone to a quiet overlook where the sunrise began to color the sky. The dawn was gentle, its warmth softening the battlefield's scars, illuminating a world still battered but undeniably alive. Cole knelt, touching the dirt beneath him as if grounding himself in the reality of what had transpired. He whispered to the memory of his daughter, not seeking forgiveness, but offering a promise fulfilled. He had struck back. He had protected others from suffering what he had endured. For the first time since losing her, he felt a sliver of peace, the kind that comes not from victory alone, but from knowing he had fought for more than vengeance. Yin approached behind him, hesitant yet determined. She thanked him softly, telling him that his courage had given humanity more than a tactical advantage. It had restored their belief in survival. Cole listened, absorbing her words with quiet humility. He did not feel like a hero, nor did he seek to become one. But as he rose to face the horizon, he recognized a shift stirring across Earth, a shift he had helped create. The sun climbed higher, casting light over the ridge where humanity had refused to fall. Cole lifted his rifle, not in triumph but in readiness. The war was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. Invincibility was a myth. Fear was no longer absolute, and hope, fragile yet enduring, had returned to the fight.